All right, YouTube, we're on to version 13, 13.2.2 to be exact, and sitting in a Walmart neighborhood market parking lot. We'll see what it decides it will do or will not do. I am press and hold, sorry. So I am going to be very quick to take over, just because it's the holiday season, and if it's doing something really silly, I'm not looking to mess with people's Christmas spirit. Let's put it that way, because we all know what the Christmas spirit is like when you're in a parking lot of a Walmart 2 days before Christmas. So it's obviously not reversing. It wants to, but I suspect the pole here is just showing up as a blob, and that might be freaking it out. So I'm going to give it some encouragement, and well, I mean, it is still kind of turning the wheel, but yeah, I'm going to give it a little encouragement. Oh, I actually stopped because I noticed a car over there is pulling out. I don't think that full self-driving noticed that. I could be wrong, but just on the off chance that it did, I wanted to give the car the opportunity to go on. So we're still sitting, we're still not going, still being hesitant. So okay, let's try again. All right, so that was a little tap on my part. It's now freaking out a little bit because there's a Kia Telluride that's pulled out behind us. All right, there's all right, so navigating out of the parking lot pretty good. So far so good. I would have preferred it not be so tight up against the cars when it was making the turn, but I think it almost felt forced to because of the Kia that had pulled up behind us, and well, it is what it is. It knew it had the distance to make the turn, and it did make it safely, so I'm not going to knock it. So first stop is going to be Cottleville Farm and Home. Just chose the Farm and Home store. I didn't get a chance to see what direction are we going to be taking. So, yep, we are going to be taking Willett, which is what I wanted. So, the reason I wanted to take Willett was, again, that's where I've had some weird braking issues and steering issues. So, let me let you know or give you the rundown for everybody who, again, has never watched my videos. I just do raw footage. I do my best to articulate my feelings in the moment. As you can imagine, you're paying attention to a whole bunch of stuff and trying to talk at the same time. You might see me pause or just decide that silence is better from time to time. I try and take the perspective of like a robo-taxi ride. So I'm not the driver so much as I am a passenger. And how do I feel about the way it's handling itself? So, this particular road, so this is why I wanted to start the trip here. Jungerman gets a little bit whiny. It feels very narrow as a human driver, especially when you've got trucks on the road with you. It definitely feels like it compresses the road a bit. So always good to see how it handles the turns, how well it stays within its lane. I specifically like to test this intersection because you're kind of on a hill from one direction, and I think it messes with the cameras and its visibility and what it can pick up on and what it can't pick up on. And so like right now we're downhill, but we've got cars that have the right of way coming from our left, and waited, timed that perfectly. Now here where we have issues is it'll stay in this right turn lane, doesn't get over quickly. So I think that handled that pretty well. It didn't wait until the last minute to get over, so kudos there. I think that kind of got fixed somewhere in version 12, like towards the end, but for a lot of times it would just stay there. I am going to try I'm going to add another destination. I'm going to try and force the car to recreate an event that I didn't capture on camera with my first drive of version 13. Really the only issue with what it did was just delayed reaction. So my experience thus far, I've been keeping it in standard mode. The biggest noticeable change is the speed profiles. More or less when you're on the highway. If you put this sucker on the highway and you change in the speed profile, it reacts instantaneously, and it, truthfully, version 13 I think is, or at least the early version of 13, I would just upright call it the highway stack. It's the big change to the highway stack. I'm not noticing, with only one drive, it's a little early, but I'm not noticing any substantial changes to urban driving situations. In fact, in some ways I would say it's even a little bit more hesitant than it was on prior versions in version 12. So maybe a slight regression so far to the urban driving experience. The flip side is the highway stack is noticeably different. So I think if you're somebody who's driving a lot of back roads or a lot of highway, this is going to be something that you're looking at going, wow, this is great. This is a huge update. If you're somebody who spends a lot of time doing urban roads, I don't know if you'll notice it quite as much. And in fact, you might notice some things that frustrate you. Like I notice it, again, waiting a little bit before I pass full judgment here, but I did notice if I don't have traffic and I'm the first one at the light and I get the green to go, it doesn't shoot itself off like a cannon like it used to, which is good. The flip side is it's now kind of reverted back to being a little slow. And in my first drive, I was staying 3 to 4 miles an hour under the speed limit, even though I had my offset at 40%. In addition to that, I was basically giving it permission in a 35 mile an hour road to go up to 50. And I don't even think it ever got over 35. So most of the time, and that was during the daytime. There was actually no real traffic to speak of. It had to make a left-hand turn, unprotected left. It was very slow about making the decision. Did it safely, but it was very slow. So again, I'm not going to talk about prior rides too much, because without the video evidence, what good is that to you? But just sharing that I feel like this is more of a highway change so far. But you know, we're going to put in a whole bunch of miles. I am going to be making a big trip down to Florida, so easily over 1,000 miles worth of driving. I haven't really figured out how I want to handle the trip, how much I'm going to record, how much I'm going to share, etc. But I will definitely find a way to relay my experiences while I'm doing it. So that's going to be a lot of highway driving for sure. So again, I'm going to repeat for anybody who's new to the channel. I try and take the experience of, if I'm a passenger sitting in a robo-taxi, what are my experiences? How do I feel about the way I'm being driven around? Am I concerned or bothered by it? Am I scared? Would I do it again? You know, what kind of little things would I point out? So, current state, this drive so far, other than, and you can't knock the way it was in the parking lot, because just in case, even though a lot of you have probably seen videos with cars pulling them in and out of parking, that's actually not a feature yet. That's a coming soon. So you can't knock it for being a little extra hesitant in the parking lot. So I just gave it a little bit of an extra nudge, but once I did, that got it going and it did what it needed to do. But we're not going to judge it based on that. So here, I would already want to be moving over left. Not bad. It, you know, again, I'd call that a slight delayed reaction to how a human driver would be. The reason I focus on that is because in traffic, human drivers will immediately make that decision to get into that lane, and they'll basically take over the lane that you need to get into, and then you're kind of boxed in. You either have to speed up or slow down if you want to be able to make the turn or get into the right lane. So that's where I'm a big believer that if you're driving the car, or if you're, you know, doing robo-taxi, it needs to get into the lane. This intersection, at some point, I want to redo doing a right-hand turn. I don't expect it to actually follow through, because there is an actual sign that pops up next to the red light where it will say no right on red. And so I really want to hit it when there isn't traffic, because right now we'd be dealing with rush hour traffic. But I really want to hit it like on the weekend when there's no traffic, because it'll give us that no right on red sign, and we'll see whether or not it hangs out at the red or if it actually tries to go. My expectation is it'll try and go, and that it's not quite ready to handle a no right on red type of scenario. Let's see, what other observations can I share? Yeah, hurry mode is definitely hurry mode. There's if you're on the highway, it wants to scoot if you put it in hurry mode. So for those of you that like to drive like that, nothing wrong with it, as long as you're doing it safely, in my opinion. But you will greatly appreciate it. I think standard mode is more than enough for me. I'm good. Drive so far, we didn't have any weird shaking, any other weird reactions. Find it interesting that it's choosing to get into this lane rather than just staying in the lane that it was in. We're still 2 miles from where it would make a right-hand turn into a parking lot, so not really a big deal. I mean, plenty of time, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, it makes you wonder, like, what made it decide that the left lane was the better lane to be in? Especially since there was actually a car that made the left-hand turn into the left lane. Obviously, we had plenty of room to get over, so the car didn't do anything wrong there. It's just, if you wanted to be in the left lane to get-go, it could have asserted itself into the left-hand turn lane from the start. And now, again, this is in standard mode, by the way. So, as you can see, now we're shifting to go and do what it wants to do. So, I don't really mind. It's going speed limit-ish. Like I said, I've given it up to 40% leeway. And we are in standard mode, so I'm not expecting it to drive like it would in hurry mode and zoom all over the place. But by the same token, I'm not expecting it to just do the speed limit or even go under the speed limit. I'm expecting it to drive like a normal human would at this point. So that car that we passed is drifting into our lane a little bit, so I don't know if that driver paying much attention, but just kind of keeping my eye on it for a little bit. Alright, so very assertive lane changes. Like, again, that to me, that's more of a hurry mode behavior right there. So this is the first time I'm actually noticing this. Again, I want to say second or third drive in the car. I've had 2 short drives of like less than a couple of miles before this one, and a little bit of highway, and I didn't notice anything regarding the speed profiles until this drive. Like, seeing how it's reacting on this road, it definitely feels like the speed profiles are, like, those behaviors are showing up. I almost feel like that, like jumping between lanes, is more of a hurry mode behavior, but it's doing it in standard mode, so interesting. We've got half a mile to where we're going to turn right. Get through the intersection. I think a normal driver would go ahead and get over to the right. Okay, so doing it exactly as you'd expect a typical person to do. I'm actually going to let it pull into the parking lot, and then I'll pick another destination. We're just going to play around and test this park-unpark feature as part of this. I apologize if I'm repeating myself, because I've forgotten little things that I might have said, but for those of you that are new to the channel, I just do raw video footage. I might, if I have time at some point in the future, try and work on cleaning this video up and doing maybe a couple different versions. Like I'll make the raw footage available for those people who like to just see everything, and then maybe do like a condensed version for people. But that is a quick turn compared to what it would normally do. That's just not, that's an observation of like comparing old FSD to new FSD from like 12 to 13. Like I would have normally seen it slow down to like 9 miles an hour. That it took. We're in the wrong lane, by the way. It needs to actually get over. So what's it gonna do? Yeah, there it goes. Will you park? So, letting it do its thing. I kind of picked farm and home on purpose, mainly because of the fact that nope. Alright, I'm gonna take over because it's registering a stoplight somehow, and I don't know, that was just very weird. I'm actually gonna turn it back on a little bit just to see what it does. What are you gonna do? Alright, it's like taking these weird turns, and there's enough traffic here that we just need to get into a spot and figure out our next destination. So, I think I said it earlier, it's right before Christmas. We do not need to be messing with people's day. Alright, so let's do Walmart. This time we will do the Super Center. Alright, so we're going to press and hold. It's going to ask me to tap to confirm. I did. We got a car coming from our right. And it recognized it, waited, and is starting to go. So far, doing a pretty good job of exiting. We're in the wrong lane. So this is actually a lane for people coming in, and there's a car coming in. We're at the stop. Alright, so still need some work on parking lot behaviors. It can't, it's nighttime. It obviously is not registering or seeing the markings on the ground that indicate that that is a lane for traffic coming into the parking lot, not for people exiting the parking lot. Admittedly, I probably should press the little button. Went hands on the wheel there just for a second, just because the last version, version 12, if it was making a right-hand turn, it often was very slow and wasn't assertive, right? So it's like, I actually found that one a little concerning because there was traffic coming, like there were cars coming in both lanes. There was a gap big enough, obviously, for it to make the turn and get going. But by the same token, the last version would have taken that so slowly that the cars behind us would have been braking pretty quickly. And so I just kind of wanted to be prepared to basically go hands-on and accelerate quickly if needed. So I'm gonna take that over. There's a ambulance or something. I can't tell where from, but I can hear it. So my apologies. It could have made that transition just like the other person did, but I'm not sure where this emergency vehicle is. Alright, I'm going to drive for a minute. I probably should let the car just to see how it responds, but we're going to go through. Okay. We'll let it take back over. I do not see the emergency vehicle. I heard the sirens, but I do not see it. So I don't know. Y'all can count that as an intervention, or you can say that I overreacted. I may have put that in the camp of an overreaction, but when you can hear an emergency vehicle and you can't see it, I'm not prone to trying to change lanes in that situation. So, and we already know that FSD isn't quite yet programmed to behave properly with emergency vehicles, but it'll be nice when that comes around. So what this should do is get us on a slight bit of highway, and then what I'm really hoping for is to repeat the behavior that I had an issue with. I did go to a Walmart drive earlier that you don't have on record. It's same drive we're about to do. When it got over, so the exit to get over to the Walmart for Jungerman, the exit that you take off of the interstate then becomes the on-ramp for anybody who needs to get on. And so, and you'll see it's an interesting, it's separated from the highway. So what effectively happened is this car just hung out on what was the exit lane and didn't get over until the very last second, when it would have actually been getting back onto the highway. And what I'm expecting, or what would be an appropriate behavior in my opinion, is that it takes the exit and then it at least gets over one additional lane, so that you're now getting onto the city streets instead of staying in the lane that's going to become an on-ramp. So we're just seeing if we can repeat the behavior where it didn't do it well, or we're going to see if it behaves a little bit better this time around. Again, it's winter time, so you're getting dark, wintry nights, unfortunately, for the time being. Hopefully you're able to see what you need to see from the screen, as well as anything that might be captured in the recording. Did my best to give you guys a decent angle. So the braking, how would I put this? Fairly good so far. That is one improvement thus far that I'm noticing. But again, early days, I'm not wanting to say for sure one way or another, but I had a lot of phantom braking issues on the last versions of version 12 that I had installed, and it was just so frustrating to the point of I didn't even want to use FSD because I had to hover my foot just in case. So we're doing our merge and handled that safely. Technically could have stayed right where it was, because the lane that we just left is actually the lane we're about to get into in less than half a mile, if it's doing it right. So, like I said, this is standard mode. To me, I would expect standard mode to be a little bit more thoughtful, right? Like a human would have been like, I'm making a exit in a mile. I don't need to pass one or two cars if everybody's basically stuck doing the same speed anyway. So still some learning to do there, in my opinion. But did it do anything wrong? No. Was it illegal? No. Did it handle it right? Absolutely it did. That feels more like a hurry mode type of functionality than standard driving. Alright, so let's see what we get here. So this is the exit that I was talking about. And the behavior I want to see here is I want to see us get off the exit and get over one lane. And the reason I want to get over one lane is so that we're asserting ourselves into the lane and not getting boxed in. Because cars behind that are a little bit more aggressive will get into that right lane. So this is what it needs to do from the get-go. Good behavior. I don't know why it did it differently this time, other than maybe I picked Walmart and it's realizing that to get to Walmart it needs to be in the right lane anyway. But yeah, last time it just hung out on the far left lane until the very last second, and then it cut over. So that was second time doing this trip, and that was actually a better better performance. So why it handled it differently the second time, I don't know, but that's the kind of behavior I would hope for. So good news. I was really hoping it was going to be the bad behavior, because then you guys would get a sense of like where you might have to take over or things like that. So again, so far the only real negative behaviors have been in the parking lots, which is something that they're working on and not a full feature that they're advertising at this point. So so we're pretty much at the Walmart. We're going to be making a left, then we'll make we'll make a right, then we'll make a left. I'll see if it can park itself, and then we'll pick another destination. My thought is I may actually just take this home just because it's dark, and maybe get out and do some driving, I don't know, tomorrow in the afternoon if the sun's out. Unfortunately for us, we're expecting to have, I mean, shouldn't say unfortunately, for visibility and for good visibility, I guess, for you as viewers, not expecting to have a lot of great weather the next few days. We're actually going to be pretty overcast, and I'm expecting rain. The flip side is that should be good for testing purposes, right? See how the car handles in the rain and with poor visibility, and is it still able to function well? So I'm actually thinking tomorrow may be a good day to get out and try some of that. Again, behaviors are all what you'd expect. I was gonna say, cars are coming and you didn't move fast enough there, car. So this happens all the time, where cars will come out of the Aldi and then you think you're gonna have a chance to go, and then you don't because they come out. So it handled that well. You could tell that it kind of wanted, it was inching forward, but it did all right. Okay, so back into a parking lot. So I'm gonna be a little bit more prepared to take over here, just because, like I said, not an advertised feature. Like, for instance, that car was pulling out. I think a normal human with as much as that car pulled out probably might have stopped or something. But I'm not going to knock it too much. Of course, for all the times I say that, usually I feel like if I'm pulling out of a parking space, it feels like nobody ever wants to Alright, so it should come to a stop. Like, the inching here is like, let the pedestrian know you're good. I'm kind of inching through. And I think it's just going to stop here. So I'm going to end the trip. We got a car behind as well, so I know there are other people that would sit there and just kind of let it do what it's going to do, but this is people getting home from work and running their last minute errands right before Christmas. I am not interested in slowing them down from getting about their business just because I'm recording a YouTube video. So we'll wait until after Christmas to let the car just mess around. Alright, so I'm gonna pull through here. Park, and let's say we want to go home this time. And I'm confirming. I was actually waiting intentionally for cars to be coming to confirm, just to make sure that it would like stop and hang out. I just wanted to see what it would do. Car coming with no headlights, and see, I made that turn a little wide. It actually kind of went into their lane a little bit, which is again, manage it safely, but I tend to be a little bit more conservative, especially when I'm seeing cars driving around with no headlights in the dark in a parking lot or anywhere else for that matter. Alright, handling itself good here. So it'll have to kind of get over fairly quickly to be able to make a left-hand turn and get back towards the interstate. It could go, and it will. Okay, stay to the left side, and it's doing that a touch. So this is where you get those differences, and I think it pays attention to the lane markings a little bit more. Personally, I would actually be more hugging this yellow lane line so that people can get around me on the right-hand side. So, not a bad thing. We're in the lane. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So, it's just more personal preference in that regard. I'm still trying to figure out how much foresight the vehicle has. And by that I just mean how far ahead, how many moves ahead is the car thinking? And I say the car thinking, but really it's the program. Like, how far forward is it considering, things that it may need to do? And I'm in the camp that it's really not, it's still not fully thinking ahead about the full trip or portions of the trip, etc. Early days, but just like you saw in the video already, we were in a lane and we were actually merged onto the highway, but didn't even need to get out of the lane that we were in. And we kind of got out of the lane and then back into the lane over the course of half a mile, if that. It just feels a little bit wasteful for me. You just make a move like that to pass one car. Like, I just don't feel like most drivers behave that way. And I don't think you're saving time or anything else really in the greater scheme of things. So it's just a weird choice to make if you're thinking that far forward. But if you're only thinking, 3/4 of a mile ahead or 1/10 of a mile ahead, then yeah, I'm going to get into this lane because there's less traffic, and then I'll move back over later, right? So I guess the question is, do we want programming to drive like a human, or do we want programming to drive like a program thinks is efficient? Pretty good merge. There was a car that needed to get into that other lane, or into the exit, if you will, and we needed to merge. It's speeding up. Well, we need to get over one more lane. We'll see how it decides to handle that timing-wise. For me, I would have already gotten over, just because then you run the risk of being boxed in when there's no reason. Plus, you've got traffic that's going to merge over here from the right side, so get over, give them the space they need. So this is kind of what I was talking about. So now we're in the exit, and now we're getting boxed. So we need to be over a lane and we're boxed in. So again, just no foresight. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Just no human driver would be, well, I take that back. Bad human drivers would do exactly what this car just did. Most good human drivers would have thought far enough ahead that they would have gotten over and not allowed themselves to get boxed in. This interchange is also very interesting, so I love testing it. It's interchange right before my house. Number one, technically you should be slowing down to about 45. We're doing 70. Cars ahead are going to cause it to actually slow down, I'm sure. But 45 is the actual speed limit for taking the exit. handled it fine, but this is where it needs to start getting over, and that was actually an improvement, I will say. Typically it would hang out in that left lane and wait to get over, and I find that this is an area where you have to be willing to be aggressive and take the chance when you get it, or else you get boxed in. So ironically, we got boxed in a minute ago because it didn't feel the need to make any change or think forward, and then 2 seconds later it's super aggressive about getting over to the right lane so that it can be able to make this right hand turn without getting boxed in. So I would love for those of you that are sticking through this video and watching the raw footage like that to give me your thoughts on those two back-to-back scenarios. Like, I just feel like that's a perfect example of thinking ahead but then not thinking ahead. I don't even know. It's like it's a contradiction. Typically speaking, this part of the drive should be uneventful from here on out. But it will be interesting to see if it parks in my driveway. So far, my experience with parking lots has not been good. It hasn't tried to park. Then again, this is the Midwest. It's nighttime. Parking lots aren't always well marked. And it's not fully programmed in, so I would love to see it try and do it, but at the same time, I'm not going to pass judgment if it does a crappy job. I actually do like the way it handled that turn right there. From version 12, so version 12, it would have made that turn and it would have slowed down quite a bit and taken that at a pace much slower than I think how a traditional human driver would have taken that. That was actually nice that it stayed at a good pace and didn't slow down too much. So now here's where we're going a little bit below the speed limit. I don't have a good reason for why it would do that. It's a pretty straightforward road. Yeah, it's windy, but normally it would actually speed. Like, if you go look at prior videos where I do this part of the trip, it'd be doing, I don't know, 4 or 5 over. So, like, just like it's finally deciding to do now, go a little bit over. But for that part, it normally doesn't slow down that much. So this, it would normally slow down to about 9 to 10. Let's see where we're at. Yeah, 13. So a little bit more confidence in making the turns. Neighborhood. See how it handles itself. I actually do not mind a car going slow through a neighborhood, especially in my neighborhood. We don't have the sidewalk, so you got people who are walking their dogs, like the individual over here on the left-hand side. You got kids that play in the yards, and ball goes out into the street or something like that. You want to be able to stop. So 100%. Perfectly fine with somebody going through the neighborhood at whatever pace they think is reasonable. But for me, 20 is about right. This intersection, I usually get a lot of hesitation, so that actually handled that well. It was a full stop. Didn't need to really do a full stop. It'd be nice if you could do a California roll, but I know, remember the whole robo-taxi. I'm not going to knock it for doing what the law requires. So, all right, so here's what will get interesting. Sometimes, if it did ever try and hit my driveway, it would try and move into my neighbors. This is my driveway, and it is opting to just pull over to the side of the road and park here. Yep. All right, well. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and drive down this way. So, what I'm going to test here is if I come from a different angle, if it will feel more comfortable. It will try and pull into It will try and pull into my driveway. But if my son is home, and he is, he parks at the edge of the driveway intentionally so I can get in and out, because he actually parks behind me. And so the car doesn't want to make the turn typically. So I just want to see if it changes its mind here. No, it looks like it's just going to choose to park. Okay, so if there's a car kind of in the driveway, then it's going to be a little conservative. Nothing wrong with that. It's still not a full feature yet, so you know, we'll see how it changes over time. Thanks for going for the ride.